Lupin and Jigen are headed to a ruin to meet with a man who apparently has a map to a sunken U-boat filled with treasure acquired by the runners-up in World War II. This man got the map during the war from the man named Mueller, deciding to pursue it now while he's still got time to enjoy the treasure. He's killed by a boomerang as a condor steals the map. The owners are a pair of siblings that wouldn't look out of place in a Go Nagai production named Hein and Bertha, the children of Mueller. They attack Lupin, so he decides to cut his losses for the moment, figuring Goemon can intercept. Goemon manages to intercept Bertha and does the clothes shredder. It's only here he realises she's a woman and gets embarrassed, allowing her to escape. Lupin and Jigen laugh at Goemon's weakness for women, but aren't too worried at losing the map, though he decides to go and meditate. The reason Lupin isn't worried is that he planted a tracker on Hein's boomerang. Meanwhile, the Mueller kids get the rundown on Lupin from their boss, a treasure hunter named Otto, aiming to revive the Reich. He spots the tracker, but Lupin's already tracked them down. Hein moves to attack, but it turns out to be a dummy filled with sleeping gas. Otto races outside and runs into Lupin, who demands the map. Otto was also prepared, revealing he has a police force headed by Zenigata in waiting. Lupin tries to point them in Otto's direction, given his affiliation, but it falls on deaf ears. With that, Lupin makes his escape, leaving Zenigata in cuffs. Lupin tails behind the Muellers, figuring they'll lead to Otto's location. Goemon meanwhile is meditating when their condor appears before him, landing on Zantetsuken. Fujiko's working with Otto, providing a sub, but she's double-crossed and taken captive. Lupin arrives to help, dodging the boomerang attack as the same tactic won't work on him more than once. Otto decides to betray all of them, dropping them in a vat of oil and preparing a lantern. Goemon arrives in time to extinguish it, but Otto escapes with the sub. The gang are smart enough to bug it at least. Hein and Bertha decide to stay behind as the gang follow Otto to his base. Goemon sits in waiting with the condor at his side as Lupin prepares to infiltrate. Otto's informed that the gang are lying in wait and has Lupin meet with him. He takes no chances, but Lupin's quick to evade his traps. Otto opens a safe, claiming the map is inside, even though all that's in there is a gun. He offers to split the treasure, but Lupin refuses, taking out a hidden henchman with a trank. Otto informs Lupin he's too late, as the safe door is also his escape route as they're already underwater. He has a rocket ready to resurface, leaving Lupin in an underwater tomb. Lupin contacts Goemon, who uses the condor to fly to the rocket and slice it in two. With that, they reclaim the map and Lupin floats to the surface with some help from Fujiko. Goemon meets with Bertha one last time to return the condor, who in turn thanks him for his help as he decides he still needs more training. I sort of feel like for an episode with Goemon in the title he'd get a bit more focus. But he does manage to save the day on more than one occasion in this episode, so there is that much. As it is though, his connection with Bertha is a bit thin beyond the beginning and end. That said, the episode itself isn't too bad in terms of structure, as everyone else, gang and villain, manages to make up for it in terms of action. On the search of a hidden treasure, Jigen heads out to a bar and discovers an old friend of his by the name Galanko, who helped train his sharpshooting ability. Their catching up is cut short by a military strike, however. Lupin and Goemon are also caught in the strike and flee, passing by Zenigata as they do so. Overlooking the now wrecked land, Lupin and Goemon split up to try and find Jigen, who's still missing. Reptile, leader of the military, has his eye on the treasure and the country, with only Galanko's guerrilla group opposing him. Zenigata is brought before him but has trouble proving he's with Interpol. Not helping is Fujiko posing as a journalist, claiming he's not Zenigata, resulting in his imprisonment. Lupin is attacked by the guerrillas and brought to Galanko, currently conversing with Jigen. Galanko tells them that most people think this treasure is just a myth, but Reptile's banking on its existence. Jigen splits off from Lupin, keeping watch on Galanko and noting him sending out messages. Lupin spies on Reptile's headquarters and overhears that Galanko is their spy. Before he can meet up and warn Jigen, he's caught, ending up in the same cell as Zenigata. Well, for a minute or two anyway, as he picks the lock easily. Sneaking through the base, he runs into Fujiko, learning she hasn't found much more than vague evidence of the treasure. As they sneak through, Lupin knocks over some rubble and alerts the soldiers. Goemon comes to their aid at this. Jigen confronts Galanko, angered that he's betraying the gorillas to Reptile. Galanko explains that he's growing tired of looking down the barrel of a gun and sees the treasure as a retirement package. Jigen doesn't accept this and challenges him. Jigen's the victor, but Galanko chastises him for only disarming him, to which Jigen retorts he clearly needs more lessons. They're interrupted by Reptile's men firing upon them on his way to the gorilla base. Galanko is hit, and with his dying words tells Jigen of a lake that might help beat Reptile's forces. Hearing another vehicle, Jigen dashes back to the roadside. It turns out to be Lupin, who has come in a tank. Jigen directs Lupin to the lake, sitting atop a mountain. They then pile up the tank's ammo and fire at it, opening a hole and causing the water to gush out on Reptile and his men below. The drained water also reveals the treasure, but Jigen asks Lupin to forget he saw it, wanting to give the gorillas a fighting chance using it. We end on Jigen bidding Galanko one last goodbye. Jigen seems to get caught up in rebellions quite a bit through the franchise. More often than not, he also seems to lose someone during them too. In that sense, it fits that he'd have old battlefield friends like Galanko at least. Some parts feel a bit fillerish, such as most of Zenigata's screen time or the approach to the lake, but it's a decent enough watch. Always good to get the odd glimpse of one of the gang's past lives too. As a man alights from a plane, he's caught in a sniper's sight. The sniper is Fujiko, shocked that he managed to effortlessly dodge her shot. Having noticed her, she contacts Lupin, telling him to come meet her as soon as possible. First step on his end is to ditch Zenigata. He then heads to a restaurant only to find Garb, Fujiko's target, waiting for him. As they drink, Garb tells Lupin of his intent to kill Fujiko. They're interrupted by one of the waiters opening fire and the power cutting out. Garb seems to have an enhanced sense of sight, but Lupin uses a decoy to distract him. He then catches up to Fujiko, the waiter who attacked, and she tells him more about Garb. The two of them worked together in the past on a heist in a mafia-run casino that he worked at. She ended up leaving him to the owners, thinking he'd been killed in the gunfight. Garb changes tactics, confronting Jigen to demand Lupin's location. They have a duel, but Jigen underestimates Garb's bullet dodging ability. Goemon comes to Jigen's aid, but isn't able to hit Garb either. Discussing things with Lupin later, Jigen tells him that Garb is rumoured to be possessed by the Grim Reaper due to his abilities as a killer. They come under fire and Lupin realises Fujiko's in danger. She's not there and Goemon realises the gunfire is coming from an automated source. Lupin takes care of it before heading off to find Fujiko. Fujiko is shot off a bike by Garb. Lupin discovers the aftermath and figures Garb doesn't want to kill her just yet. Garb has Fujiko contact Lupin to draw him out and then straps her to a time bomb. Back at their hideout, Jigen finds a video of Fujiko's encounter with Garb. They also find an X-ray and discover Garb has a bullet lodged in his brain, likely the source of his bullet dodging ability. Lupin decides to try and rescue Fujiko anyway, with Jigen and Goemon tagging along as they won't abandon him. Time ticks down and Lupin makes his presence known. Garb's response is throwing dynamite, forcing Lupin back into cover. With Jigen's help, Lupin opens fire. Neither has any luck hitting him. They soon notice his movements, however, and realise how to counter. Jigen fires off a shot and then Lupin aims at it, hitting it back at Garb. Their reunion with Fujiko will have to wait, however, as Zenigata is once again on their trail. It's certainly been a while since we saw anything of Fujiko's past getting any focus. Episode 9 of Series 1 is the one that comes to mind for me, in fact. It helps we have a much bigger archive of stories by this point that's got her character down a lot more too. Garb was an entertaining no-nonsense antagonist, definitely felt like a near unstoppable threat right to the end. The final duel served as a good highlight to end the episode on too. In a remote region of Alaska, a priest leads a group of villagers in the name of their sacred golden statue of Mary. He warns that Lupin will soon come to steal it. Speaking of which, Lupin is on the run from the police once more with Fujiko alongside him. It's a bumpy getaway, but they manage to elude the police. The villagers then appear, kidnapping Fujiko and telling Lupin to come to Alaska if they want her back. Lupin gathers Jigen and Goemon and heads there, curious to their motive but suspecting he knows the kidnapper from somewhere. Fujiko is greeted by the priest, who tries and fails to recruit her to his cause. As punishment, she's propped up as a demon before the villagers. The statue is brought in and catches her interest as she protests. Keeping watch, Lupin recognises the priest as a small-time thief named Yunkel and the kidnapper as his partner Gordon. He moves in and rescues Fujiko before she's burned at the stake, rampaging through the village as he does so. Before they flee, Fujiko makes a grab for the statue. The gang are pursued and Goemon cuts the statue, revealing it to be a tracker. Yunkel catches up to them and attacks, despite Lupin trying to tell the villagers the statue they have was fake. Yunkel shoots him in response. Grief-stricken, Fujiko unpins a grenade, using the imminent explosion to grab Jigen and Goemon and run. They escape to a cabin but soon get pinned down. No chance of escaping through the back either, as they're on a cliffside. With the villagers pursuing the gang, Yunkel heads to where the real statue is hidden, not seeing a bear following. Said bear is Lupin in disguise. Yunkel's bullet only went through Lupin's coat, and thanks to Fujiko's theatrics he hid under the snow with no one any the wiser. Gordon has no luck against him, but the statue is guarded by an electric laser grid. Yunkel taunts Lupin, turning up the voltage. Lupin took Gordon's whip in their fight, so he uses it to channel the current at Yunkel himself. The power grid breaks and Lupin escapes with the statue. The gang hold the fort, with Lupin sending them a message to let them know he's ready. The villagers enlist the help of a man with a line of dynamite. As it sets off, they realise too late that it's Lupin, as the trinket clears allows the gang to escape, grabbing the statue along the way. This one did a good job of feeling like a lot went on in the time given, with both halves managing to fit quite a lot of story and action in. As a bit of a side note, while we got a police chase, there was no Zenigata, and I kind of feel like it was a benefit to the episode, as his appearances in the past few episodes have been kind of token rather than adding anything meaningful. Next time, a case of athlete's foot, a challenge for a diamond via newspaper, a gem that grants immortality, and an art forger brings us to episode 12. Until then,